Okay, it's turn 12. Demise did not attack me, which is good. He hit Amphalia instead. Perhaps we can peacefully coexist. However, Prime moved into Fields of Gold right after I'd assassinated both of the commanders. Prime moved in, and unfortunately that means they didn't even have to fight. Their Hellherdings and Mounted Herdmen didn't have to do anything. They just waltzed in and all the independents routed, and Prime is probably like, well, okay, interesting. They must know why that is, obviously, but it's still irritating. They've given this druid a Baneblade, which is actually a pretty good idea. Here's his bless: Reinvigoration +2 and Blood Surge, which for Hellherdings, perfectly reasonable bless. Hellherdings are Elf Sacreds, Elf Cavalry Sacreds, so they have super high defense values, very low prot overall, but that doesn't really matter so much when you have such super high defense values, and the Blood Surge will push their attack and strength up high enough that their attacks do pretty well. Only the Light Lance will get the strength bonus, however, but their attack value will go up to 17, so they'll do pretty well for themselves. The only real counter to this kind of thing is mass numbers of units in general, and or massed missiles, which of course I can do, fortunately. So, he's got the Mounted Herdmen, he's got the Hellherdings, he has one druid leading them, so Water, Earth, and Astral. Prime, I'm not sure, I don't think we've looked at Prime in detail. Or at least not much detail. Prime is this nation right here. Prime has the Fomorian Kings, capital only, light super combatant chassis. They have Dryad Mothers for their assassin, which everybody has to have in this game apparently. Expensive, but quite effective mages. They can foul vapors easily. They're Holy 2, they have leadership. They can random Earth magic, which honestly Earth 1 isn't super valuable, but also they're stealthy, seducers, etc. They have Lore Masters, which I think is a weird pick, but okay, I mean, that's fine. They can random all sorts of stuff, which is pretty cool. They have She-Lords, who have the unfortunate palette swap, who are great thug chassis, and they have Druids for their main, like, Communion Earth power, and then they also have Seithkona, who are going to be their primary mage recruit all the way across the board. Seithkona are ridiculously good value. For troops, they've got Androleths, which is another really weird pick, for my money. They've got Hellherdings as a capital-only sacred. They have Trolls, which are expensive, probably more expensive than they really merit. I mean, Trolls hit very, very hard, but that's pretty much their only redeeming quality. They're susceptible to fire by a lot, so they'll take 10 extra damage from fire hits, or double the damage, whichever is less. And they can never not be set on fire. They do regenerate, so if they're set on fire, they can regenerate through it, but 10 extra damage from fire attacks means that, like, a fireball that hits a troll will almost kill it, on average. I love his rewritten fluff, though. It's pretty nice. Oh boy. This practice, while not forbidden or lethal to dissected trolls, is not approved because when domination fades, said troll goes around complaining about procedures being painful. Fair. Reasonable. They've got Heal It Soldiers, which still have the lab promotion mechanic. They've got Seal Hunters, which are decent. They're just decent, cheap chaff units. They have Harpoons, which only have 1 ammunition, but do have a web effect, which is pretty neat. And they have Stormguard, which fly in storms and have magical weapons, so Stormguard are pretty solid. As well as Mounted Herdmen, which are just sort of a cheaper version of Hellherdings that aren't sacred. And then, of course, they have 3 Astral, 1 Nature. So overall, it's an interesting nation. There are some things that I just think don't help it. Also, they have Scrati. I don't know how I meant to skip right over those. Scrati are great. But like, Androleths, I don't think Androleths help Prime at all. Not least because Prime has no access to water unless they manage to get down here. Which will, of course, put them in direct competition with Illwinter. They might manage to get this province. But overall, Prime has no access to water, so the Androleths are just kind of a wasted slot. And they're not super effective, even if they weren't. Seal Hunters, I don't know, add a whole lot. I really don't know that they add much to the nation. Trolls might be good. Trolls are good, like, Soul Vortex fodder for Communions and for Fomorian Kings, and I think that's their primary use in this nation. The regeneration means that they can stay themselves alive. can keep themselves alive, not stay themselves alive. My god, I'm losing my mind. Means they can keep themselves alive while serving as Soul Vortex batteries for Fomorian Kings or Sith Corner, which could be useful. I could see that. Mounted Herdmen, I think are too expensive for what they do. Like, they're good troops, don't get me wrong. They're stealthy and they have glamour. And, of course, he does have stealthy commanders, so Prime can elf pretty well, but expensively. And Mounted Herdmen are very expensive for their combat performance, especially because they get hit with spells just like anybody else. Defense skill and glamour do not protect you from falling fires or gifts from heaven or what have you. So spamming AoE damage evocations is quite an effective way to wipe out hundreds and hundreds of gold worth of elves if someone has massed up elf troops like this. Stormguard are a good pick. They're a good shout. They have, in cold especially, they have really high protection. In cold, they have protection 20. They cost a lot of resources, but he has resources to spare because Seal Hunters cost almost none and Trolls cost almost none, and Mounted Herdmen cost very little comparable to their recruitment points, So Stormguard, good shout. Flying Storms, not really relevant to him because he doesn't have much. Well, actually, I take it back. I'm sorry, I tell a lie. Fomorian Kings can cast Storm out of the box. So he does have Storm access, and Stormguard could be very useful there. And Healed Soldiers, if you have a lot of spare resources, Healed Soldiers are just solid line troops that then promote to even solider line troops. He might have a little bit of trouble leading them if they do promote, because he doesn't have a ton of magic leadership, but both of his commander mages, the She-Lords and the Dryad Mothers, both do have magic, and so the Druids. All of his commander mages have some magic leadership, so they will be able to lead Ironbound if they do promote. And then, of course, Fomorian Kings have a little bit of magic leadership too. So overall, pretty decent nation. Some things that I think stick out as not necessarily helping, but hey, it is what it is. Over here, my Palisades are wrapping up. 1 turn for that one, 2 turns for that one. I'm upgrading this to a fortress. We have a lab, and we're starting to crap out Conjurers up here. Down here, still spamming Magi, and now we're starting to spam Infantry. Having some Burgmeister Guard chaff, I think, would be very, very useful if we do end up going to war against Demise here. And, of course, Bone Tribe Beast Hunters are also handy. We are gathering up a bunch of chariots and such right there. Shaiki, I need to contact Broken25, who's playing Prime. He's subbed in for the original player, Cerebral Bush. I need to contact him and talk and make sure that he's not going to attack me. That's my primary goal here. I've sent him a message. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. I kind of need to know whether he is amenable to a non-aggression pact or what before I move away this unit. In terms of military ambitions, my goal is to mass up troops here and prepare to attack Monarch Woods in fairly short order, actually. I would like to take Monarch Woods within about a year, and I think I can do it. Because, as I mentioned before, Monarch Woods looks to be mostly undead chaff. And undead chaff are actually not hard for me to deal with. Chariots can kill a lot of undead chaff pretty easily. Bone Tribe Beast Hunters won't trade very efficiently into undead chaff, but Burgmeister Guard probably will. With their very high defense skills, their damage is relatively low, but undead have relatively low prot and HP, so Burgmeister Guard should be able to carve their way through quite a few soulless/long dead without too much trouble. As long as their morale holds up. That's kind of going to be the big key, is they need morale buffs, and I don't have the morale buff stuff yet, but I'll get there. I haven't researched any construction, so I can't really forge. Like, the Helmet of Heroes would be the thing that I would want. Helmet of Heroes on an Ujigami, as I've mentioned before, would give morale +5, which would push Burgmeister Guards up to a base of 14. That's really what I need in order to field them really successfully. If I want to field a front line of like 80 or 90 or 100 Burgmeister Guard, I need to have them led by Ujigami, or at least Warrior Mages / Abbesses wearing a Helmet of Heroes. And I'm probably going to spend a pretty significant number of Fire Gems forging those helmets, which is fine by me. I have a reasonable number of Fire Gems already, and my income is okay. I would actually like to have more income by now, but my site searching has been fairly surface level, so I'm not too surprised that I haven't found many sites. I do need to site search over here. Building a lab there. Emog is standing here, whistling and twiddling his thumbs because he's waiting for the money to free up to build his lab. Same for Einthis. So next turn I may double lab if I can afford it, but I also need to start upgrading that fort This fort I want to upgrade to a citadel as well as quickly as I can, but it's okay to let it be a fortress for a few turns. As long as I'm getting 1 mage per turn out of it, that'll be fine. Rod is going to step over here, site search that province, which is under the influence of the high developer. Sad. Sad, but true. And I could use some more... I could use another couple of temples. So pretty soon I'm going to want to build a temple up in Terram, and a temple down here at least. For that, I'm going to need to recruit an abbess, I think. Or I can use Shaigi, but Shaigi right now is leading troops. Shaigi, by the way, has become unequally obese, so he is a fat lad, and his hit points have gone up very slightly, and his encumbrance has gone up almost as much, which is super, super sad. There was that battle in the Weald, and we just rolled over all the Deer Tribe. We lost 3 chariots, so that's fine. Yeah, overall, pretty decent turn. I regret losing Fields of Gold, I really do. But I'm not going to push it because I don't want to go to war with Prime. I'll just let them keep that. I'll suggest that we hold our borders as they are. We each hold 1 of the provinces that are 2 away from our respective capitals, because their capital's right there. So I'm just going to suggest that we're even Stevens and let sleeping dogs lie. As for what throne this is, I think it's the Throne of Death. I'm pretty sure it's the Throne of Death. Like, I can't think of a reason why it wouldn't be the Throne of Death, given that it's guarded by hundreds of soulless and long dead. And so yeah, I think there's a Lich there commanding it. I'm going to bounce a scout off it this turn just to see what exactly is there. And then yeah, I think if I can muster up a whole bunch of chariots and infantry and a small communion of mages throwing buffs on those chariots, I think I'll be able to just trample my way through this without too much trouble. Kalkheim has built a fort in Shambalak, which is a fair shout. I have a whole bunch of assassins right here that I don't really need to be on that province, so I'm going to distribute a couple of them out this way to keep an eye on Kalkheim, and I'm going to have 1 sneak down into the Order of the Divine Flames territory just to see what's going on. This, if you'll recall, is led by a polemarch. My assassins can't kill a polemarch anyway, not without gear. If I wanted to use an assassin to kill a polemarch, I would need to research at least Construction 2 and give him like a Sword of Sharpness or something, as well as some defensive gear, because the polemarch's spear is magical, so the my ethereality would not defend me from it. So I would need to be dual wielding like a Sword of Sharpness and a main gouge of parrying or something. Actually, I could dual wield Swords of Sharpness with no penalty, and then just gamble on getting the first hits off. Although the polemarch's defense skill is pretty mighty as well, so yeah, a Stalker would not have good odds against a polemarch. Not until I get like Bottles of Living Water, or some other really high-tier assassination item. Like a bottle of living water, yeah, that could probably put paid to an ungeared polemarch. A water elemental could punch a polemarch to death, probably, especially with the assassin also helping out with like some basic weapon or something, or having a handful of acorns to provide distraction, something like that. With that gearing, yeah, I could take on a polemarch. Currently, especially ungeared, nah, it's just not gonna work. The best I could hope for, and it would be very unlikely, would be for the dagger to slip through and hit him with the poison, and if I rolled really well on the poison, I might be able to kill a polemarch. But unlikely, because that would require like an exploding roll on the poison, or at least a very high roll on the poison, and it would require 13 piercing damage to go through the polemarch's armor in the first place after hitting with 15 attack against the polemarch's defense skill, which is also 15 base. So, you know, and of course I could get repelled on the way in, because the Godslayer Spear is length 4 and has a pretty high attack value. So, yeah, polemarchs are pretty stalker-proof. My strategies for dealing with that are definitely going to have to be aimed at the army rather than the polemarch. And if he starts fielding polemarch thugs against me, then I'm going to have to start pulling out anti-thug magic. Fortunately, Farstrike counts. Farstrike, hilariously enough, it's good enough to hurt polemarchs casting it, and it's fairly precise, and I can cast it a lot without any worries about running out of fatigue or anything, out of a very small communion. So that would probably be my first go-to if he started launching polemarch thugs at me, would just be little old men punching them to death through portals. And if that didn't work, Mind Burn would be the second closest step. And if that didn't work, then we would have to start pulling out, like, elemental summons, Earth Meld plus masses and masses of Bone Tribe Beast Hunters, things like, you know, more, slightly less direct counters. But I have counters available, just Chariots aren't it. Chariots are not good at countering pull marks. So in any case, overall, I think I'm in pretty good shape. That's a Bone Tribe province, interestingly. That would actually be kind of nice, because Bone Tribe provinces give Bone Readers, which are good mages, and they would give me the Death Air Cross Path, which I otherwise don't have, and indeed, I don't have much air at all. But I'm not going to go for it because I don't want to antagonize Illwinter. I would much rather deal with one thing at a time. However, that might be a decent secondary goal for me to head towards a little bit later in the game. If I end up going to war with Illwinter, then that will be a priority target to take that and consume those delicious independent mages, fold them into my coalition, help them see the light, and rise up against their oppressors, at least all their oppressors who aren't me. So, that is turn 12. Good year 0. Solid year 0. I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, 1 second, I lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 provinces. Not quite as many as I wanted, but enough with my scales to get some pretty good income and make a solid showing of things. In terms of who might have gotten more provinces, I don't know. I got about my fair share. I think probably everyone got something like that. Now, I will say I think R'hllala probably got more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 just underwater. And then he can kind of pick his target around the borders of the lake. So I think R'hllala is in pretty good shape, geographically speaking. I don't have any idea where the Order of the Divine Flame has gone on other fronts. He may have managed to expand out this far, in which case he has a pretty good grip of territory. I doubt it, though. I think he probably ran into somebody before he got too far there. Overall, I think this map is slightly more cramped than average, so we shouldn't plan on too many people having 16 or 18 provinces at this point. But I mean, a man can always dream, and I certainly was dreaming earlier on when I was hoping that I would end up with all this, and all this, and all that. But you know what? Overall, I made it out as far as I needed to in most directions. And I think fighting a nice little war over in this direction or over in this direction, one of the two, is probably a good next step. Plus, getting an early throne with a lot of death income can only help me. So, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all in turn 13. Okay, folks, turn 13. No real combat. We bounced to scout off Monarch Woods and confirmed. There is in fact just the Lich there. And it's a pretty hench Lich. I mean, he is. We go into the battle here, we can see all of his gems and stuff. He's right down here. He's actually Death 5, so for some reason he's more deathy than most Liches. And he also has a whole bunch of death gems, so he can cast some nasty stuff, don't get me wrong. But beyond that, this army is primarily soulless, some long dead, and then it has some long dead horsemen, which are still size 3 and thus still trampleable. So I can absolutely take this province just with a big ol' contingent of chariots. And maybe some frontline infantry to hold people back. So, that is what I'm going to do. We're combining our chariots here. We've got 8 chariots down this way. We've got 16 up there. That's not enough. We'll probably need about 50 or 60 at least. So we're going to build up towards that. We're also recruiting a bunch of Burgmeister Guard to serve as our front line. Now, the downside to Burgmeister Guard is that their morale is not great, but if you take them in a large squad, they're not going to have to start taking morale checks for a long time. And that's the goal here. Also, high magic resistance, which means they'll be resistant to Shadow Blast, which might be something that Lich casts on us. And these two boys are sneaking up here. We may assassinate the other commanders just to make sure the Lich is the only one left. We have built 2 forts this turn, and we are upgrading them both. We're plowing our money heavily into infrastructure right now. So we're upgrading that to a fortress, upgrading that to a fortress. Our resources here in the UIC are down somewhat, but that's okay. Building a palisade there. Einthus is just standing here for now. He's site searched the place. He's just waiting for the money to come free to build a lab. And pretty soon I would like to recruit an abbess or 2 so that I can go around building a temple. But I'm still spamming mages for now. Up here, we're recruiting conjurers. We actually have 1 extra command point that I don't have anything to spend on right now. So, because I'm a little short of gold, I'll tell you what. Let's cut these boys out. Don't really need them. Up here, we will spend that 1 point on a stalker. And then our 111 gold will actually plow into 2 chariot. No, don't do the no. Oh, Jesus Christ. Hang on. Oh, God. I fucked it up. I fucked it. That'll be fine. We only lost 1 gold by doing that. Sometimes you do that and it completely screws up your whole day because you had you had like commander points left over. But fortunately, I think I wasn't getting 2 mages this turn anyway, so not too bad. Okay, so we have a non-aggression pact with Prime. We have a non-aggression pact with the Sacreds of Hell. We have a non-aggression pact with Lala. We have a non-aggression pact with Illwinter. I don't think we technically have a non-aggression pact with the Order of the Divine Flame, but we have a tentative agreement that we're going to both go in against Kalkheim. And we can confirm, yes, Kalkheim's Solarian cultists are in fact reanimating Ulmish long dead. So his frontline armies will be very, very nasty. This is still Pazuzu, and we're just ignoring Pazuzu. Just, okay, Pazuzu, you do your thing. These assassins are going to sneak up in here, and we're going to start assassinating cultists sometime pretty soon, probably in a mass stalker alpha strike. I don't have all that many stalkers left right now, actually. But, so yeah, recruiting them up here might be the way to go. I would definitely like to get some conjurers out, though, and start blood hunting. And what I might do is, after we hit Conjuration 3, I might pause and actually race down to Construction 4 just to grab the Skull Staffs so that I can start summoning vampires by, like, turn 24. Because I think that might be very, very useful. Got a Garth and Light Crossbows over here. Illwinter is moving around. Okay, so yeah, that's about the turn. Don't have a whole lot going on right now. Just researching, building up, assembling forces to go take Monarch Woods. And yeah, I think we'll just kind of have to see you next time, I guess. I've got these troops joining, so some frontline infantry. And yeah, we're gonna build up our troops, assemble them in Idarol, finish our infrastructure. So we'll end up with 5 forts, which is not a bad place to be year 1, and mass up a whole bunch of research. And then, in terms of combat, our main combat spells right now are just Earthmeld and Farstrike, which we can definitely improve. None of our spells that we're going to reach early are really good against the undead, though, except potentially Legions of Steel. Legions of Steel is a great buff for Burgmeister Guard because they're already tough little bastards. Legions of Steel makes them even tougher, and they take AoE buffs really, really well since they are 6 per square. Strength of Giants actually is also very, very good for them, but Burgmeister Guard against skeletons are not there to do the killing, so that is not really relevant. But yeah, to overwhelm this army, I think all I need is about 60 or 70 chariots. A little bit less than halfway there, so, well, yeah, a little bit less than halfway there. So we'll just need to pump out a few more turns worth of chariot production, and then send it into Monarch Woods, and I think we'll take it, unless that Lich does something extremely clever and casts, like, Rigor Mortis and Darkness, which he might be able to do, but it would... I don't think he'll like to do it. I think he would much rather spam Shadow Blasts and Skeletons at me, because that's what AI Death Mages tend to want to do, so I think it'll be fine. In any case, thanks for watching. See y'all in turn 14. Alright, folks, turn 14. It's been a quiet turn. We are continuing our build-up. Our forts are expanding. We're building a lot of infrastructure still. We're building a fortress here. Nothing here right now, but a fortress and a lab down here. And we're starting to recruit our first mages out of our ancillary forts. So we've got a conjurer being recruited here, we've got conjurers being recruited here, and we're still spamming magi out of our central fort, as well as centaur chariots and a few Burgmeister guards. We are concentrating our forces over here. So we've got, all told, we've got about 90 units, but only a third of them or so are chariots. There's a lot of Bone Tribe Beast Hunters, which won't be super useful against the undead, and then there's some Burgmeister Guard, which will be fairly useful, but not like the be-all and end-all. We've got 2 more commanders coming back to United Independent Coalition to pick up chariots. We are starting to site search for death sites, which are vital. We need to have some death income so that we can forge a skull staff to let us begin summoning vampire counts. Now, we've got some assassins on Kalkheim's forts. Kalkheim has 2 fortresses completed here. That's actually a castle, so he's already upgraded that one. And that's a regular fortress. And he's got cultists in each one. Now, the only commanders he's got here are cultists, so I'm moving all my assassins onto these 2 forts. We've got 1 assassin on each right now. Relatively low province defense. That'll be 2. We'll have a 3rd there. And then I'd like to recruit a few more assassins. So I may, after I've gotten a couple conjurers done, I may cancel conjurers and start spamming out 2 stalkers per turn from Terim. So that, sometime fairly soon, I can begin mass assassinating his cultists. If you can kill every commander in a province, all of the cultists in a province, then it becomes very difficult for him to do anything. And, of course, assassinating cultists slows down his skeleton spam pretty significantly. My assassins, in killing cultists, if they kill 2 cultists each, they have more than paid for themselves. And so, and, of course, I can, if I'm willing to cancel mage recruitment, I can be spamming out 5 of them per turn here, which would be enough to depopulate his forts pretty effectively. Not incredibly effectively, since he does get cultists for 1 command point each as well, and they are actually cheaper than my assassins. But could be done. So all told, we've got 5 forts. 3 are currently upgraded. That one will be done next turn. That one will be done the turn after that. We do need to upgrade to castles and thence to citadels sometime pretty soon. But that is kind of secondary. Like, citadels are great, but you don't need them immediately. So my income will be able to be devoted more towards recruiting units fairly soon. I would also like to, I'd like to get another fort, probably here in Esquania, just for the income. Because my income in some of these provinces is very, very high. Like, I'm up to 200 in Terim already. And the mercs will be up pretty high as well, because the administration is 15, which administration is what affects your income. Over here, administration is 30, and then, of course, with a citadel, administration is 60. So that gives a very, very significant income bonus. So we're gathering troops. We're going to go through Monarch Woods sometime fairly soon, hopefully, as I said before turn 24. And also by turn 24, I'm hoping to be set up at least to start vampire production. In pursuit of that, I've swapped my research around. I'm hitting Conjuration level 3 first, which should only take 2 turns, and then we're going down to Construction level 4. That will give me Legions of Steel, which is a great buff for my Burgmeister Guard, and it will also give me, of course, Skull Staffs and Sanguine Dowsing Rods. Now, before then, that does mean I definitely need to recruit a few Conjurers in order to site search for death sites. I'm also beginning to recruit Warrior Magi. Warrior Magi are really important for diversity for me. They're my only real source of air and water paths, and they're also my source for Fire 2 and Earth 2. So most of the randoms of Warrior Mages will be just sent out to site search. And I should be able to site search, fairly okay-ish for a lot of different gem types, which is my ideal here. I did find an Earth site this turn, so that was good. In terms of unexpected events, I got some Unrest in Azamar, and then I got some money in Dragon Ridge. Unrest in Azamar, it'll just go away on its own since I have Order Dominion. And then, of course, extra gold is always welcome. And so, yeah, things are going pretty well. Rod is just moving back to Terim, where he's going to sit there and research. And then I am going to move one Magus, over to Setica and Edirol to site search those provinces, and I also need to site search the Weald. So Emug should go site search the Weald. And that'll be fine. Alright, so that's the turn. And it's pretty short, I know, but yeah, so the plan is to fight Kalkheim if we possibly can. Now, interestingly, it looks like not all of Kalkheim's undead are Ulmish, are the national Ulmish, because these guys just have swords and shields and no helmets. So they are not the greatsword skeletons. So he may not be getting 100% greatsword skeletons from the reanimation of his Solarian cultists. I anticipated that, kind of, because that's how Mound Fiends work, and Mound Fiends reanimate the same way that Solarian cultists do. So he's getting he's not getting 100% greatsword efficiency, but he is still getting a lot of those really, really good national long dead. I'm actually going to move Augustinus up here just to see how much he has in his capital, and if how much he's taken over that way. And we'll just kind of see what we have to see. Honestly, if Kalkheim is already too powerful, then we're going to wait, because as magic comes online, my Magi will become more and more potent against the skeleton hordes. Now, there is the issue, of course, that he has more than skeletons. He has flyers, he has the Ice Guard, which are very powerful troops. He's got good communions of his own with the Thaumaturgs and the his Wizard Kings. His Wizard Kings with Theurg Communicants are terrifying, because these guys can easily boost up to level 5 or 6 in any path that they have. You know, with like 8 Communicants, they're level 5. They can then be holding an item of some kind, or can cast a booster item, or can cast a boosting spell to push themselves up to 6. Late game, they'll be able to cast any spell in the game. Unfortunately, there's not much to do about it except rely on the fact that they're incredibly expensive. Like, it costs more for him to build and upgrade a fort. It costs more for him to recruit this one guy than it does to build and upgrade a fort, and even though he's sacred, his upkeep is also very, very high. So, he can't have many. That's the thing, and any Wizard King we manage to kill is a huge victory. Beyond that, he does have, of course, he has blood. He has his thugs. He has pretty good elf thugs, so that we definitely have to be looking out for. Assassins are not going to work on these guys unless they're very heavily geared. Even if they're very heavily geared, they probably won't work, just because the defense skill 21 will be enough to avoid attacks pretty effectively. And if these guys get a hit on the assassin's just going to die. And the glamour, of course, makes it even worse, because then they only have a 1 in 3 chance of actually hitting them. So, you know, that's something that counters my own assassins very efficiently. His dryads, of course, are assassins in their own right. And then in terms of combat, thaumaturgs are his main combat mage, and they're pretty good at that. He also has engineers who can build advanced forts, so he can get citadels of his own and churn out tons and tons of those skeletons. So yeah, we do need to take him out. I just have to make sure I'm prepared before I go in to take him out. And definitely I want to start with a mass assassination strike to cut down on his production just before we go in. But it's a card I can only really play once, because after I do it once, he'll be patrolling very heavily and he'll be bodyguarding his mages very heavily. And so assassins will stop having that kind of efficiency. Probably the way to work it after that is to equip my assassins with Scepters of Authority and have them set the Solarian Cultists on fire. Assuming he doesn't have a fire resistance plus, which I don't think he does. I think, if I had to guess, I would say that he's gone full scales. Because he's got, well, it's interesting because he took a Trinity. He took the Hooded Spirits, which is a weird choice because Hooded Spirits are bad. But, I guess he's just, memeing with it because his nation is already hilariously powerful. You know. In any case, that's the turn, and I will see you all in turn 15.